thank you for being here.
Sure.
Rogers. First question, what will you do personally to bring jobs to Tallapoosa County?
Well, follow up with what I've offered to do with your chamber leadership. I met with the chamber leadership recently and urged them to consider going out and calling on businesses around the country, specifically in places like upstate New York, California, Ohio, Michigan, where businesses are heavily taxed, heavily regulated, and heavily unionized, and call on them and urge them to consider coming to the Alex City, Dadeville area and relocating their businesses. The fact is, there are consultants that you can hire, get contact with them through the ADO, and they can help you locate the most prime prospects. And then what I urged them to do was set aside 2 or 3 days in a week and go to California, call on those customers, be happy to go with them and do that, or follow up with those prospects and contact them and let them know I will be helpful. And the point being that there are a lot of these companies that are leaving those areas for the reasons I just outlined and may not even be thinking about East Alabama as an opportunity. But as I've told them, it's like when you're selling insurance or advertising or any other service or good. A lot of times you got to call on the customer and just can't wait on people to come to you. And you never know. Some of those things may turn into people saying, well, you know, I had never thought about that, but I have been looking at relocating and not come there. Or they may go to the golf course and one of their peers be there and say, well, you know, I had some folks from East Alabama come see me, and it's a pretty area down there and low cost. So the point is, I urged them and have offered to work with them in going after potential companies that would consider relocating to this area.
Question number 2. Explain your position on gambling and what, if any, forms you believe should be allowed in the state of Alabama.
Well, as you know, gambling is the issue that's regulated by the states, so I don't really
Yes.
have any jurisdiction over that. However, when I was in the state legislature for 8 years, I opposed all gambling and remain opposed to it. I think we see with the current indictments in the state legislature that a lot of corruption follows with casino gambling in particular. But frankly, you know, I'm not a big fan of even lotteries because of the people that I think the lottery preys upon, the people who are most vulnerable and least can afford it. But also, a big problem I had with the lottery when I was in the legislature was it was going to only generate for the state about $100 to $150 million. That is not enough money to pay for the scholarships that were being suggested. And frankly, you know, if people want to have a lottery, you know, that's up to them, but they need to know the facts, and that is exactly what it would achieve for the state financially. And then if they want to make that choice, then that's something that they just got to, I would vote against it, though, if it was put on the ballot.
And that, again, that last statement, that was if you were still in the state legislature.
If I was in the legislature, no, I would oppose the legislation. But if, as a voter now, because I'm not in the legislature and Congress doesn't regulate it, but if it was put on the ballot for voters to determine whether or not they wanted to have either casino gambling or a lottery, I would be opposed to either of those and would vote no.
If reelected, how would you stay in touch with your constituents, and how would you prefer that they would contact you?
Well, I try to do it, I would plan to do it the same way I do now. We have regular teletown hall meetings where I talk to the constituents by phone conference from my DC office. And also, as you are probably aware, I live in the district. I commute to Washington. So I'm at home every weekend in the same ballparks and church and Winn-Dixie and Walmart and other places, so people see me like they always have. And then as far as getting around the district, I make it a practice. You know, once every 2 months we get a week where we can stay in the district And I try to visit all the counties in my district during those periods of time and do town hall meetings, drop by media outlets and local businesses and chambers. So I would continue to do what I've been doing for the last 8 years, and I think people see me a lot in their counties and they appreciate that.
All right, this is a three-part question.
Sure.
And I'll read them. I'll just read it off straight through, and then we can take it one by one. What's your affiliation with the Alabama Education Association, the Business Council of Alabama, and the Tea Party movement, and how will your affiliations affect your votes?
Okay. Alabama Education Association, I have no affiliation with them, and to my knowledge, they make no effort to lobby any members of the congressional delegation. That's pretty much a body that focuses on the state legislature. Business Council of Alabama, they have endorsed me, and in full disclosure, my wife is a member of the board of directors of the Business Council of Alabama. She's an employment attorney in Anniston, Alabama. And they do periodically make recommendations to the congressional delegation as to how they would like to see us vote on legislation in Washington. Things like card check and trade bills and such. And I pay a lot of attention to the Business Council of Alabama. They're a very pro-growth, pro-jobs entity, and they don't tell me how to vote, but I give a great weight to what they recommend. The Tea Party, I like the Tea Party. I think the Tea Party stirred folks up. And the fact is, the biggest problem I've had in my 24 years in public office, from the county commission to the legislature and Congress, has been apathy. Most people just are not involved, not interested, hadn't voted, don't vote. That's changed in the last couple of years, and the Tea Party's had a lot to do with getting people off the couch and getting them out and stirring around. And there's going to be a heavy vote this November as a consequence of a lot of the agitation that the Tea Party has brought about. And my view is, if people are involved, nothing bad can come from that. I think you're going to see good public policy as a result of public involvement, and so the Tea Party has had a great effect on that public involvement.
What is your take on, and again I apologize because you did speak on a lot of this stuff on was that about 2 Saturdays ago? Yeah, inequality, a couple Thursdays ago. What is your take on the healthcare legislation?
Okay, I was very opposed to the healthcare legislation for a host of reasons. First and foremost, the way it was handled. They had a 3,000-page bill. They dropped on us and had us voting on it in less than 24 hours when it was not humanly possible for anybody to read the bill. That in itself was a reason to vote against it. But I also had a problem with the fact that they were centralizing too much control over health care in Washington. I don't think that's necessary. And then another aside is just the enhanced costs associated with this nationalization of health care. As we're already seeing, about half the people in America have seen their health insurance premiums go up. The remaining half will be in the next year. And that's because of the things that have already been implemented. Most of the health care reform legislation, what we call Obamacare, will not be implemented to 2014. But some of the things were implemented this year, just in fact a couple months ago. Like, for example, a child in your home can stay on your health insurance up to age 26. Children with pre-existing conditions must be allowed onto the plan, and things such as that. Well, all those things have a cost associated with them. An insurance company has to set aside money based on formulas as to how many participants are in their plans, how much they project costs could be as a consequence. So when they're mandated to cover certain things, they have to set aside more money in the corpus of their funds to pay those claims when they come in. And that's what they're doing now. And the government has been, and I say the government, the administration has been claiming that they're gouging, when in fact all they're doing is what every insurance company has to do. If you've got a new component that you've got to give coverage for, you've got to set aside money to do that, which means raise premiums. I think we're going to continue to see raised premiums, and that was not one of the things that was sold to us. In fact, we were told that it would cause health insurance costs to go down. Even Medicare recipients are already seeing increases in their premiums, and without a cost of living increase for 2 years, I think it's just unconscionable to raise their Medicare premiums.
And the last question. Your thoughts on working with the president, and more specifically,
Well, I can just tell you the president is a very bright fellow.
your thoughts on working with the president.
Very bright fellow, very articulate. Unfortunately, he has come into office with a supermajority of Democrats in the House and a supermajority of Democrats in the Senate. And from their perspective, the stars have aligned for them to grow government and do things that the Democratic Party really believes are good for the country. I am diametrically opposed to those things. And we're seeing a centralization of healthcare, centralization of the financial markets, overregulation of the, in fact, a lot of nationalization of the auto industry, overregulation of environmental issues, and a host of other things. It's my hope, though, having said that after this midterm election, if in fact the Republican Party takes control of one or both chambers, that this president will do what Bill Clinton did and recognize that he needs to pivot and work in a cooperative way with the new Congress to do good things for the country. He's clearly bright enough to do that. I hope he's political enough to do that. One big difference between this president and Bill Clinton is Bill Clinton was a political animal. And he could sense when he needed to make those pivots. My concern is this president's more ideological, and I hope that he'll get past that and recognize that he is the leader of all the American people, and that we are dissatisfied, and that we need to focus on what the American people want focused on, and that is jobs and the economy. And if he'll do that, we're ready to work with him.
Very good.
All right.
Very good.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm late.
That's all right.
I hate being late, but story of my life.